Disney contacted me asking me to be on a documentary that they have, the Marvel Hero Project on Disney Plus. Only 20 kids in the world who are being honored as Marvel superheroes, and they get their own comic book.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited about my guest today. My guest is Mr. Sidney Keys III, and he is the founder of a book club in St. Louis that he started when he was 10 years old. So let's get started. Hi, Sidney.
Hi, Miss Mitchell.
Hi. Wow, you're a big celebrity in St. Louis.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. A lot of people say that, but I try and stay as humble as possible.
Of course, yes. Well, I know you are the founder of Books and Bros. Books and Bros, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, tell me about that. How old were you when you started it, and what was your inspiration for starting that book club?
So I was 10 years old in 2016 whenever I started Books and Bros. It was the summer, and my mom took me to a bookstore, the only African-American children's bookstore in St. Louis. And so when she was actually taking me there, I didn't know where we were going, so it was a surprise to me. And so when we pulled up to a bookstore, I was like, yay, a bookstore, a 10-year-old boy. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I kept the open mind because I'd always loved to read. And so when I went inside and I picked up a book and started reading it, I couldn't put that book down. I just had to keep on reading and reading. And I ended up finishing that book on the carpet in the store.
Wow.
My mom took a Facebook Live video of me reading this book, and it ended up going viral with 60,000 views. So we were like, well, why is it so popular? It's just a black boy reading African-American literacy. And then we realized you don't really see that in the community as often as you should, especially with the stereotype that black boys don't like to read or they don't read. And so my mom kind of gave me a decision. She was like, you can either have your 15 minutes of fame, or we can do something about this that can better the community, or we can start something. And I started that idea. I was like, well, I kind of want to be in a book club because I want to start reading more books like this book that I read that I really love.
Do you have to remember the book, Sidney?
Yeah. So the name of the book was Danny Dollar, Millionaire Extraordinaire, Lemonade Escapade.
Was it a black character?
Yeah, so it was a black boy who my mom says looks like me, but it was teaching young boys about financial literacy. And so it was a book that kind of talked about a way a little boy became a millionaire through saving and investing his money with like the bank through a lemonade stand. And so on the cover, it was a black boy on the cover of $1 million bill. And so I was like, oh, a book with a boy who looks like me and money? That looks like a good book. So I guess that's why I chose it. But that's how Books and Bros was born.
Was it hard to get started? How did you do that?
So it was very hard getting started. And so the first meetup that we had, actually, we hosted it at the bookstore, and we had about 7 bros show up, including me, which actually I was happy with that. I was really excited that people showed up, and it was just really fun. I had my own lemonade stand because Danny Dollar was the first book that we read. So I had my own lemonade stand. I was like selling lemonade and snacks, and we would read the book and discuss it inside of like a little group. But after a while of doing the book club, maybe like a few months, the membership didn't really grow. It actually started going down. So at one point we actually had like maybe 4 bros showing up average on like every meetup, and it started getting very discouraging. And I was like, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. Nobody's showing up. And so my mom was like, give it 1 more month and then we can decide. And I was like, okay, that's fine with me. And so literally the next meetup, we had NBC News come and showcase me on their news channel, and we ended up having a spike of members grow. So that was kind of like the first slump that I experienced. But
well, what a good break for you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Then you were out of the bookstore. You had met at a place in Ferguson.
So actually by then we were out of the bookstore, but we were hosting our meetups at the Microsoft Center in the Galleria.
Okay.
So little space, and we would play video games and stuff after the meetups were over. So we kind of had a partnership with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like, I think you have a lot of partnerships now, but we'll get to that. So you were discouraged at first. You just thought you might give up, but then you said NBC came in and that attracted some new members.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's great. Did you come up with the title Books and Bros?
I did come up with the title Books and Bros. And actually, when I first came up with it, I was like, well, what if we named it Books and Bros? And my mom was like, Books and Bros? But she was like, we can do that. And I think it's grown on her a lot more. So I think that she loves the title now.
Well, I want to go back to what you said about you always loved to read when you were a little boy.
Hmm.
How did that happen? Did your mom read to you?
Yeah, so literacy has always been a huge part of my family, especially with like communications, because my grandma, she was in like news broadcasting and stuff, and she was also into literacy because she used to work at the history museum. And so she gave me all books to read, and she would read to me like every night that I would go to bed. And that's kind of how like my love for reading started, and especially through books like Dr. Seuss. I loved Dr. Seuss growing up, and I even had a huge book that my granddad gave me that had a whole bunch of stories in it, and I just read that entire book over and over again.
Well, that's great. So it sounds like when you got to the bookstore when you were 10 years old, that's why you weren't disappointed, because you love
Exactly.
books.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really love books. Now tell me about the components of the book club. How does it work?
So how the book club works is we meet up once a month on the first Sunday of every month from 4 to 6. And so each month we meet up at the Ferguson Youth Initiative, but some of the components that we have to Books and Bros is one initiative that we started called Big Bros. And so Big Bros is basically men who come to each meetup and they kind of mentor and help facilitate the meetup. So we'll go into groups and we'll have different kind of groups with different Big Bros in it, facilitating their own group of boys reading and discussing the book that we're having, as well as giving advice and kind of mentoring the bros as well.
That sounds good. And I did read something that you all are very smart during this pandemic age. You're doing virtual meetings, well, first because of the pandemic, but also there are people all over the country now who want to be in this book club. So how are you helping them?
So how we're helping people all over the country now who are signing up, because we actually are having a spike in memberships due to COVID and people are tuning in virtually. How we're serving them is basically how we would serve our virtual bros any other time. So everybody is virtual now. So we have boxes that we ship out every month. So each bro will get one box, and we'll have the curriculum, snacks, the book, and other trinkets, maybe like a mask since we're social distancing and stuff like that. So we'll have maybe like a mask and other like a coloring sheet from this one business where it's like coloring is very therapeutic, and so we put colors in there for the boys as well to color with and kind of keep their minds off of events that are going on right now.
That's great. Now I do want to get to another really serious subject, and you did say that there is a stereotype out there that African American boys, Black boys especially, are not interested in reading, and you are trying to combat that stereotype with your mission. Do you feel you're making headway? How is that going?
Yeah, I feel that I'm making a lot of headway with that stereotype and combating it, because even like here, let's just say one experience. So I went to speak at this school, and it was a 5th grade classroom, and I was in the 6th grade at the time actually, so I wasn't much older than them. And I asked, and it was a classroom, it was majority boys in the classroom. They were like, because they kind of like split the classroom up into who wanted to kind of tune in and who wanted to go to the other speaking engagement that was going on. But most of the boys, whenever I asked who likes to read, a lot of them raised their hand, and I was like, oh, that's really amazing. And I was telling them that boys statistically don't read as much as girls do, and they were like, what? That's crazy. That's like, what? I love to read. And that made my heart kind of warm as well, because that's not something that you run into very often. And so I kind of, in a way that kind of, it feels like I'm making a difference as well, because even just like for the bros in the book club, some of the parents have come to me like, hey, my boy's reading scores have improved. He's been testing on he's been testing higher on like the map test, on his reading and language ever since he joined the book club, and his behavior has gotten better as well. And so I think that Books and Bros is helping a lot, and I love knowing that it is.
Well, I did read an article on tips to help boys want to read, and you're doing all of them. You said Books and Bros, you're giving boys books. You're reading aloud. Let me see what it says on all these tips from this professional organization. You're making reading social. You're encouraging men to read with the boys, and you're encouraging boys to start reading what they love and what they're interested in, and they're choosing their own reading material. Is that correct? Are you doing all those things?
Yeah, so we try and keep it like different. So we know like during school, like let's say school, so a teacher gives you a book. A lot of the books that teachers will give you in school are not interesting at all. Like that's no secret. Most of them you won't be interested in, and that's when boys say they don't like to read, because they get these boring books from like that they aren't interested in, like topics that they don't like, and so they just kind of throw it out the window and put the idea in their head that they don't like to read. try and keep each book fresh. Like maybe 1 month we'll do sci-fi. The next month we'll do an athletics book about basketball or football. Maybe the next month we'll do something fantasy related to kind of keep reading fresh for them and something new and different. And so that's just kind of how we keep the idea fresh.
Something I know very exciting has happened to you, and it has to do with the company that people all over the world know about, Disney. Please tell me, Sidney, what is this Disney Marvel connection that you're involved with?
Disney contacted me asking me to be on a documentary that they have, the Marvel Hero Project on Disney Plus, to be one of the only 20 kids in the world who are being honored as Marvel superheroes, and they get their own comic book.
Okay, Hero Project, the Spectacular Sidney, changing the world one page at a time. What?
Yeah, so they honored me with being an official Marvel hero. So that's amazing, and it's a huge blessing.
Absolutely. Are you like super reader or what you've got to have a name?
Yeah, so my superhero name is the Spectacular Sidney, and my superpower is the ability to read any book and pick any power that's in that book. So actually, if I open it up, I can show you. So like on this page right here, it has like Captain America and like their powers and stuff, and you see me being able to use their powers from reading a book about them. And so
that's fantastic. Sidney, can you believe this has happened to you? Did you ever dream that you would get a phone call from Disney? Wow.
Yeah, I think that's a dream that's just in like almost like a lot of people's mind, being a official hero. And just like growing up, I would look up to superheroes like Iron Man, Captain America, Black Panther. And I would always be like, I want to be like them. And now I'm an actual superhero. And that's just something that's like super surreal and crazy.
So what has happened to you since you've gotten this honor? Has it allowed you to speak to more people? You've traveled, or have you met the other 19 kids?
Yeah, so I've met all the other kids as well. So we actually stay in touch a lot. So we have like a little group chat where we can like talk every once in a while. And that's really nice because it's more so like we're friends, which is really nice as well. But some of the positive things that have happened to me is we've gotten a lot more exposure. So that spiked our membership like a lot, as well as speaking engagements and publicity as well.
That is so marvelous. Well, Sidney, I'm just so proud of you. I think this is great. You're just talking my language about boys reading. I just love it. But I want to get into, what is this reading doing for boys, their heart, mind, and soul? When you're reading a book, what's it doing for you inside your mind?
For my mind and heart and soul, when I see boys and Black boys reading books that they like and they're genuinely enjoying it, it makes me know why I have the passion that I do for this book club and why I want to continue doing it. Because I love seeing that I'm changing boys' perspective. Because when most of the boys, when they come to the book club, like for the first time, they're not the ones who said, hey mom, I want to go to Books and Bros. It was mostly their parents who signed them up, and they kind of had the force to come. But once they get there and they end up having an amazing time, they don't want to leave. And so that just honestly warms my heart as well. Just knowing that I'm actually changing their perspective on reading and literature.
That's great. And what about you personally? Are you learning a lot of different things? Are you helping your vocabulary grow? Are you finding out what you might want to do in life?
Yeah, personally, this has helped me a lot as well, because I found out actually, so my family, is huge into communications and kind of like stuff like that and news broadcasting. And so like my grandma, she used to be a news broadcaster, and my uncle, he actually writes for he writes for a news article. And so I kind of actually wanted to go into news. And so I want to try and become like a news anchor or something in that department.
Yes. And by reading about all these different people, you can do it because you've seen other people succeed, right?
Yes, I love reading about Books and Bros in general. It's just helped my mind grow, because growing up, the most African-American literacy that I saw was Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, which they're amazing people, but as a young kid, you want to see more. You want to see people you can relate to. And that's something that I didn't get growing up in the school that I was, because it was majority white or Caucasian. Mm-hmm. And so when my mom took me to ICME, I just loved those books so much more because I could relate. And growing up, reading books that I can relate to with characters who look like me, it's just made my mind grow entirely, thinking and knowing that I can do anything and everything.
You sure can, Sidney. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share? Any words of advice for maybe some young boys who say, books, just give me a basketball. I just want to go out. Talk to that kid.
So talking to that kid who wants to just kind of go out and play basketball, which nothing's wrong with that, but you also need to have a good balance as well. Because I love to go outside and play games, but also you need to have a good balance with reading as well, because reading is what makes the world go round. Language is what makes the world go round. And you need to have a good balance with literature. And as well, growing up and getting a job, you need to be able to speak and put your chest back and do an interview and speak to them fluently, as well as read certain contracts that you're going to sign. Because if you're going to be a basketball player, you need to learn how to read your contract that you're going to sign, saying how much money you get. And if you read that wrong, you're going to get kind of like ruined, and you're not going to be able to get what you deserve. And so that's how reading is going to help you in the long run.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's such a good point. Mr. Sidney Keys III, thank you for joining me today on Literacy Journeys with Linda. I really appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. You have a lot of lives that you're going to change and influence. Thank you so much, Sidney.
No problem. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell, for having me.
It's my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking with Mr. Sidney Keys III on Literacy Journeys with Linda. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you'd like to hear more interviews with these wonderful people, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye, Sidney.
Bye, Ms. Mitchell.